All new Pacific Mornings with Will on 531 PI.
It is 7 minutes past 7 o'clock for Tuesday, the 19th of August. Brilliant to be in your company this morning. I'm William Teresi in the chair with you through until 9 a.m. this morning. Joining me now is ACT Party Leader and Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour to dissect the political issues of the week. Maloilele, thank you very much for your time.
Hey, Talofa, how you going?
Good, thank you. Really appreciate your time as always. Look, I just wanted to perhaps start with building reform. Now, this government is pushing building reform, and it's very positive in itself, and needs to happen. Kind of begs the question, though, what's the biggest change everyday homeowners will actually notice?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, if you're not doing any building work, then life carries on. But if you do want to renovate, or if you want to build a house or someone's building a house for you, then it's going to be easier for them to get consent. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we're looking at different councils merging together to have a one-stop shop for issuing building consents. That's a really positive thing, because often builders find that they go to one place and they get a different answer from another place. So if you're a big building company, you have to have sort of almost different applications and different rules to do the same thing, which is crazy in such a small country as New Zealand. The second thing is that at the moment we have what's called joint and several liability, which means that if, say, there's a council that issues the consent, there's an architect that does the design, there's a building product company that supplies the timber and panelling, and then there's a builder that puts it all together, then any of those people can be held liable for the entire cost of the building should something go wrong. Now, what that means is that often the materials can't be identified as being responsible. The builder might have shut down one company and set up another one. The architect, if they were involved, could have done the same. And that leaves only the council liable to do the compensation. Now, that has a huge effect on ratepayers. We've seen an estimate from Queensland where they used to have a scheme like this and changed. They reckon that it's probably saved ratepayers about $300 a year over the last 30 years.
Wow.
From the council not having to bail out bad building all the time.
Yeah.
But it does something else. It also means that if the council knows they're responsible, then they're very scared of letting people build things. I mean, if I was running a council, I wouldn't let anyone build anything because I know it's going to be a huge cost. I was talking to a mayor a few years ago, and I said, "How are you doing today?" He said, "Terrible." I said, "What's gone wrong?" He said, "Well, we just had to pay out a whole year's rates in our small town to basically compensate one apartment building that we consented someone to build 15 years ago." So that scares them. And what the councils do is they get really finicky and they delay people and they want to inspect everything many times. But here's the next thing that happens. When the council is highly responsible and they're getting into all the details and they're stopping you and they're checking everything, then they become responsible for more stuff. So it's been a terrible system. New Zealand's one of the few, if the only country in the English-speaking world that has this joint and several liability. What we're saying is that actually we're going back to what they call proportional liability, so that each of those people involved might be an architect, might be a building materials company, might be a builder, might be the consenting agency. All of them can be responsible for their part of the problem. And when you give people responsibility for what they do, people can take more responsibility, and then you can get stuff done faster.
Yeah. What do you make of the concerns? Old mate Chippy came out saying that he's concerned this will be Leaky Homes 2.0 era. What do you make of those concerns?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, I've been an opposition politician, and to me, that sounds like someone just grabbing what's the thing I can say that will get people worried and get me on the news tonight. And of course, everyone's afraid of leaky buildings. But since that happened, you've had the licensed building practitioners code. You've had some of the things that led to leaky buildings, such as using untreated timber. You can't do that anymore. Some of the designs that led to leaky buildings, like having a roof that didn't go over the wall, so the water actually went off the roof but still into the wall. Some of those designs you see around the city, people don't really do that anymore, or if they do, they're much more careful in how they design it. So, there's a lot of things have changed in 20 years since leaky buildings, but that doesn't mean that we have to stick with joint and several liability.
Yeah, sure. It's no secret I'm a big fan of the Ministry for Regulation, but it kind of comes back to that point of how do you ensure safety isn't compromised, say, in the name of efficiency?
Well, I think, first of all, thank you for your fandom of the Ministry for Regulation, but I think, some people think the Ministry for Regulation is about just getting rid of all the rules, and that's not true. The trick is that sometimes rules are necessary and sometimes they're not. And when they're necessary is when two people have a problem that they just can't solve any other way. So, for example, when you buy a house, you have no way of knowing what's behind the walls. I mean, you can get a building inspection, sure, but you might not know about everybody involved. You might not be able to trust the building inspector. If they get it wrong, they might not have the money to front up, or you might not be able to hold them responsible. So those are all reasons why it's not like buying a pizza. It's a big long-term thing, and it's hard to understand if it's still going to be working in 5, 10 years' time. And that's why it's necessary to have building regulations. But the question is, who has the responsibility? Who has the ability to pay? And most importantly, who has the power to ensure it's done right in the first place? If you make sure that the people responsible bear the risk, then they will try and minimize the risk. And if it goes wrong, then they should be in a position to compensate you. And so the government's looking at, what would a sort of alternative insurance scheme look like for builders, say? If we can do that, then we can get a system that works better for everybody.
Yeah. Look, I just want to shift your attention to the Pacific Islands Forum. New Zealand's put forward a bid to host in 2027. What's your thoughts? Terms, how do you even justify the costs? Because PIF in itself seems like a bit of a laugh, frankly.
Well, I mean, obviously, with any kind of political meeting, there'll be people that say we don't really like that meeting and we didn't get much out of it. But it is important to keep on talking. So I would make a similar argument about the UN. There's a lot of things the UN does that you think, really? But I don't think that we should abandon having a place where the world goes to talk. And it's the same with the Pacific Islands Forum. So, yep, people can criticize it. But I think it's important that New Zealand really shows that we're invested in the Pacific. We are a Pacific nation. We value our friendships with all of the Pacific Island nations. And we're putting forward a bid to say, look, if the other forum leaders would like to see New Zealand host it, then we're ready to do our part. And hopefully the Prime Minister, Chris Luxon, when he goes overseas, I think it's next month, he'll be over there in Aotearoa to try and make the deal that the next forum will be in New Zealand.
Nurses and teachers are on strike again over pay and staffing concerns. What do you think that suggests about the government's relationship, one with unions but also frontline workers?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, every single person listening to this, I'm sure, knows that it's a really hard economic time. Prices are high, wage growth has not been as good as we'd like, and this has been going on for years now. So there's a lot of pressure on everyone. And second of all, I can understand nurses and teachers would want to, get the best deal they can. But we've also got to recognise that everyone's under pressure. The government is under a lot of pressure. And in both cases, they've had quite substantial rises in the last few years. So with teachers, I think it's something like 14% in the last 5 years they've gone up. In the last 2 years they've gone up. I should check that, but they've certainly had significant rises. The average teacher is now over $100,000. So this is not a bad place to be, and we'll do what we can. But bear in mind that if we pay teachers more, then we can't afford to do as much on, say, teacher aides. The government's put hundreds of millions of dollars into teacher aides to make teachers' job easier, because there's a lot of challenges with behaviour in the classroom. If we do that, we can't do as much on the salary. So we're just trying to get by like everyone, make a fair deal for everybody, bearing in mind that both nurses and teachers have had quite significant increases, much bigger increases than most workers in the last few years.
Speaking to you specifically through your capacity as the ACT Party leader, are you happy or satisfied at the speed at which economic growth is moving in this country? Some would argue it seems just far too slow.
No, I'm not happy with it. We've got a major problem with economic growth and productivity in New Zealand. I mean, just to take the politics out for a second, if you look at the last 10 years, productivity growth, and that's how much people can produce in an hour, that's gone up by 0.2% a year. That's almost nothing. And if you look at the 10 years before that, it was going up at 1.4% a year. So the last 10 years, not blaming any particular party or government, I mean, there's been three different governments in the last 10 years, we've had 0.2% growth. And so you asked me as ACT leader, the reason I'm an ACT, I'm in a different party, is that I think we need more change than other parties have been prepared to make. We need to be tougher on red tape because we spend too much time in compliance activity. This building thing's an example of that, so I'm really pleased that's happening. We don't have enough money coming in from overseas to invest in machinery and equipment and new ideas. And we've also let education down in the last 20 years. Really, our education's been going downhill. Now, if you don't have, new ideas, new equipment, and really good skills, then it's hard to have an economy where people produce valuable things. And if we're not producing valuable things, then that limits what your business can sell stuff for, and it limits what you can be paid. So, all of this stuff's actually much simpler than people make it out. More investment, more skills, and less time on red tape and regulation. Produce more stuff, get paid more. That's something we haven't boiled it down to be that simple, but we need to.
Common sense. 5 unions are now taking your government to the High Court over these pay equity changes. Did you anticipate that kind of backlash?
No, I mean, anyone can take anyone to court any time if they want. But I just make the point that this is another example of having the wrong priorities. So if you look at the last 5 years or so, mainly under the previous government, the idea was that pay equity was the solution. If you'd like more money, go away, make a claim, have a negotiation, get paid more. Well, that's okay, but you're not actually producing anything extra. You're just arguing to take more of the money that's available. The question is, how do we make the whole country richer so we're not always arguing with each other about, butter's too expensive, petrol's too expensive, rent's too expensive. Now people are saying mince is too expensive and $18.99 a kg I saw the other day. I mean, that is expensive. We have all of these problems, but the thing that links them all together is, it's a different thing every 6 months that we're worried about, but there's a common theme here.
Sure.
We don't have the economic growth, we don't have the wage growth to afford all the things that we need.
Just I want to stick with that though. Pacific women are already paid less than their Pākehā and Māori counterparts and are overrepresented in these sectors. Do you accept that policy shift does hit them hardest?
I accept that if your strategy was to make a pay equity claim and you hoped that would increase your wages, then it depends. If you have a genuine issue with gender discrimination, then you can still make a claim. You can still get paid more. We haven't actually taken that away. But if the hope was that a pay equity claim through some massive negotiation was going to increase wages, well, I don't think that was ever true. We have to make sure the economy overall grows. So, I kind of accept that, but I also just make the point that pay equity is still there for genuine discrimination.
Sure.
And in any case, the real solution is that we all need to get wealthier.
Look, just before I let you go, I just want to very quickly turn to local election candidates. One, you're happy with the calibre of ACT Party candidates, but also have they been well vetted? There's no skeletons in the closet. Particularly excited to see you're putting someone up in Manukau in the Aotearoa ward as well.
Yeah, look, we are. And we've, we had about 700 people who applied to stand as ACT candidates, and only 46 got through. So, our candidates for ACT are very strong candidates. And I think the critical thing is often people, they get the little book from the council and that there's just a few words about each person in a photo, and you think, is that, how do I even decide? The thing about ACT Local is if you basically want someone who says lower rates, less spending at council, you want to be able to drive your car and park it, and you don't like councils getting into this whole race thing where they say, if you're Maori, you have special rights, and if you're not, you're just a normal person and you don't. You want everyone to be treated equally. Then an Act Local candidate stands for those things, and that's why I say, look, Act Local is a brand that you can rely on.
Certainly. Thank you very much for your time. That is the ACT Party leader and Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour. You have a good rest of your day, eh?
You too, William. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers. You're listening